Death. The morbid fascination I have with death is probably unhealthy. With my recent cancer diagnosis and the frankly strange mindset I've experienced these past 2 years, death has been on my mind prevalent. It is the ultimate human plight to be put on this earth with the knowledge that you will one day meet an end. It's like life is a cruel game, every human the subject of some wicked god's joke. Like, hey, you've been given sentience, now you must bear the pain and suffering and the fact that you will at some point be stripped of all of it and pitted into the unknown. Consciousness is a scary thing. I'm not sure what scares me more, ceasing to exist after life or continuing onwards for all of eternity, never escaping its grips. People say heaven is the best outcome, some almighty kingdom of peace, but is that true? In order to enjoy heaven, you'd have to be completely unaware of the concept of time itself, or perhaps you'd have to view time as something you can rewind or fast forward at any moment. Very scary things. Perhaps I'm thinking too human like with all of this, and when I'm stripped of humanity, it'll make more sense. What I did is I went on Reddit and I found stories from people who have ended up dying, but miraculously they come back, and we together are going to be reading some of their experiences. So hop in and enjoy this video. But before anything, like and subscribe. I want more than 2 subscribers, okay? My low effort content is worth at least 10. So, yeah, let's get into this video. As you guys can see, I don't have a computer at my disposal, so I've just had to print out stories from Reddit so we can read them. This video will be divided into 3 categories: neutral experiences, heaven, and hell. Okay, just based on what people have said on Reddit. Now, hopefully, they're being truthful and they're not just lying for clicks. That would be dastardly, but I'm just gonna take their word for it because it's kind of a weird thing to lie about. But yeah, let's get into it. The first bit from Reddit we have is actually a little bit of food for thought. It comes from a man named Court of the Air. It says, see, the problem is that these people's hearts may have stopped beating, but they didn't actually experience brain death. So technically, no one really knows what it's like to die. And, I agree with you, Court of the Air. I don't think anyone truly understands death. No one understands the infinite, but they may give us some insight into the beginning transition phases, losing your humanhood and ascending to whatever comes after. So, the first portion of this video is just from users who kind of had a net neutral experience, so they experienced nothing. Our first story comes from Silicate Tacos. They say, it was like going to sleep. It was warm, silent blackness. I took 380 plus pills, including muscle relaxants, painkillers, and the like. My heart stopped before the ambulance arrived at the hospital, and I swear I remember hearing a flatline. There was nothing after death. In a way, it's comforting, if not a little heartbreaking. I can't help but feel like maybe nothingness after death is probably one of the better outcomes. I mean, it's certainly better than an infinite hell. And like I said in the intro, if you know nothing of time, maybe you can enjoy heaven. But I can't help but feel like existing forever is somehow more of a nightmare than just not existing at all. Like I said, if you have no concept of time, maybe it's all right, but like just jumping from experience to experience, it just seems kind of awful to me. Like, I feel like the shelf life of existence is something like 500 or so years. And then after that, it probably is just terrible. Our next story comes from Navin Johnson 75. I broke my femur when I was 22, and I was in the hospital for a few weeks. I was in so much pain that the first few days they decided I needed to sleep, and they turned up the morphine drip. I coded in the middle of the night, and then they resuscitated me with an adrenaline shot. Apparently, I was clinically dead for almost 1 minute. Maybe that's not very long to be dead, or whatever, but there was nothing to it. No tunnel, no lights, no hugs from deceased relatives, nothing. Okay, you're only gone for a minute. I feel like that's that doesn't qualify you as truly dead, sir. You know, you probably didn't even get to the good stuff. You were still in the DMT trip of your mind. Okay? Our next story comes from Apprehensive Bug 826. He says, a guy I used to work with did a lot of sailing and accidentally drowned once before being resuscitated. He said that the last thing he remembered before going out was this feeling of absolutely peaceful serenity. Is that one thing I should expect when I go? Peaceful serenity? It's actually kind of alleviating, you know? It's such a common thing. I'm hoping that it's just what happens, you know? I would be alright with maybe, you know, a couple minutes of serenity, accepting that I'm no longer burdened with life. I no longer have to feel pain, pressure, stress, or anything like that. And then I just fade off into nothingness. To me, that sounds pretty cool. For the next portion of the video, I want to share experiences that some could consider heavenly. Okay, it's not just nothingness. We're done with that. We're on to people who have actually experienced something positive in the afterlife. Our first story of heaven comes from a woman named Shelley Pierces. I drowned when I was 7. I died. They called the coroner, loaded me into the bag, and I came back. It was painful. I remember my lungs spasming and burning. Then I looked up and, oh my god, the color bursts were beautiful. Absolutely stunning. I would love for everyone to see those color bursts, but, you know, without the dying. Okay, that's a that's all that story had to offer, but it's something, you know. It might give some of my viewers hope that you might not just experience complete nothingness. That's a scary concept. Imagine you are in a complete black pool of nothingness, but you're conscious of it. You're like, come on now. That sucks. Our next tale comes from Jewel Flip. When I was younger, I drowned in a lake. It was scary at first, but when the sun broke through the clouds, all of a sudden, the cove I was in was glowing this green gold, and I felt incredibly peaceful. After the first breath of water, the world got quiet and I drifted. My experience of death was strange. I was conscious and I was me. It was dark, but not because there was no light, but rather no sight. I was a drop of water in a puddle in the ocean. I could feel all consciousness surrounding me while still autonomous. It was wonderful, but they sent me back because I was too soon. I've definitely perused Reddit enough to have seen some stories where people report waking up in like a field of green grass or some kind of beautiful nature setting. So I know that certain people have definitely experienced things like that. I'm not trying to be too negative with this video and instill any kind of fear and death within you because I don't actually know anything about death. Nobody does, but some people say that they experience something super positive. So, kind of, the point I'm trying to make is be positive. Don't be so negative pilled like me because there's definitely people who have experienced heavenly scenarios. But, right as I say that, I want to bring the mood back down again with the story. Our final story, recounting hell, hell itself. This comes from a man named the Fecal Jesus. I had a few friends who have been in crazy accidents and have slipped into comas as a result. One said it was the most peaceful experience ever. They had something similar to the white light phenomenon where they were floating above their body, seeing a bright light. Almost the same stereotypical experience. The other had a completely different experience that shook me a little. He said he saw demons and creatures, all sorts of crazy shit. He even said he felt pain and sorrow. He said it was the most horrific thing he's ever experienced. That's scary. So basically, be good in life because I'm pretty sure the karma system has some kind of validity and we all have a destined path and you can either be really good and end up somewhere positive or you can be really bad. and maybe end up somewhere you don't want to be.